Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Third Eye Awakening. I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm also really happy to have Hanne here with me today. She is a leader of sexual expression, an ex-sugar baby, sex worker, and addict turned personal development junkie, leading other young women to discover their self-worth. And she's going to tell us today about her experience of awakening and connecting with her body and how that has really started to change her life. So thank you, Hanne, for being here. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation. As I was saying to you just before, this isn't a conversation that I have, I guess, really had with a lot of people in my personal life, as my spiritual awakening has been more of a recent thing. And it's not something that, really the circles of people that I hang around with, I guess, quite as open to as like more of my like online connections. So yeah, it's really exciting to be able to have this conversation.
Yeah, you know what? Even I relate to that. It's so funny because now I have these conversations all the time, but they're pretty much almost exclusively in like virtual space with people that I've connected with from, wherever in the world. And the people in my physical life still totally think I'm a nut job.
Yeah, I think about this often, even with so I haven't been like really open about it, say like on my Instagram and stuff like that. But, I try and add little bits in here and there. Sometimes I think people must think that I'm just absolutely bonkers, but I'm okay with that.
So will you tell us a little bit about yourself, like what's kind of brought you here? And
Okay, so I am currently living in New Zealand, and this is where I'm from. So I've been traveling around really since March last year. So I've hopped around quite a few different countries: New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, London, and so I came home to New Zealand the day before we went into lockdown in March. And since we came out of lockdown about 6 months ago, I decided to start traveling around New Zealand, since we have the freedom to do that here, which is amazing. So I have spent the last about 6.5 months road tripping around New Zealand by myself mainly. And through that time, because I spent so much of that time by myself, driving around on my own, I had so much time to really think about things and explore my thoughts and explore who I am and what I believe and what I want to believe. And that was really incredible. Like all of this space that I gave myself really started this spiritual awakening experience that I had. And I think what really triggered it for me, because I had been like delving into the more spiritual side of things and some more of my spiritual beliefs, and I had, adopted this kind of identity of being, somewhat of a bit of a spiritual person. And yeah, what really shook things up massively for me was I took a course by Viola Hug called Manifestation Magic. And I just had such a strong feeling that I had to do this course. I was like, no doubt about it, this is going to be freaking amazing. So I jumped into it, not knowing at all the massive shifts that I'd have from it. And it was through doing this course that I really started to connect to myself, my self-worth, and really the magic of the universe and understanding. I guess it was like, yeah, I started to understand the limitlessness, if that's a word,
Yeah.
um, of what I could experience, and how connecting deeper with myself and deeper with the universe just opens me up to so many possibilities. And it was through experiencing manifestation fucking magic that I realized this. And it was interesting because, so I was still, at the time, I was working as an escort, so a sex worker, and I was dating sugar daddies. And I've been doing that I'd been working on and off in the sex industry since I was 19. I'm 27 now. And I had been dating sugar daddies for the last 4 years, about. And during manifestation magic, I started to attract all of this incredible stuff. And a lot of it was through the avenue of sugar dating and escorting, but in a way that I never experienced before. And I just felt there was like, I don't know how to explain, there was just this like power around me that I'd just never known before. So not only did, I feel more connected with the universe and like what could come to me, but yeah, I guess just understanding my own power, understanding the universal powers. It feels so weird to like try and talk about, because because it's so new, I haven't like quite figured out how to put a lot of it into words, which, I'm sure so many people who have just recently gone through some sort of spiritual awakening and have no idea how to describe it, experience as well.
Yeah, I think people do. Like that was a really big thing for me. I think it only just shifted like last year when I like pushed through my incredible terror of talking about my spiritual perspective online. And now it feels so easy. But at the time, like before that, it felt like there were these huge concepts that I couldn't put into words. And like I just felt like a crazy person stumbling for words all the time, trying to explain something and feeling like I was always falling flat on my face and just not explaining it properly. And I think the
Yeah.
English language is very limited in like what it offers us to be able to explain these concepts too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It definitely feels like I'm fumbling around with it. And it is such a strange thing to experience when you start to experience like a new way of thinking, a new way of life, like your feelings are different and your perceptions are different. How do you explain that to people who haven't experienced that? And how do you be okay with seeming kind of crazy? But I mean, I think that comes with, I know personally that's come with my spiritual awakening too, as in that my spiritual beliefs and experiences became more important than not wanting to seem crazy.
Mm, I love
Yeah, like
that.
yeah. Yeah, and but I found when I first started going through all of this, my perception started to change, and just the way that I felt moving through the world as it was happening, I started to feel this like very intense need to remove myself from like everything that was going on around me. So, because I was traveling around New Zealand at the time, I decided to go way up north in the North Island up to like Paihia, where it's like this tiny little town, like right on the ocean. Like it was so beautiful, but I didn't know anyone there, and that was the real draw to it, because I felt like I just needed to get away from everything and everyone and take some space to, I now realize, to integrate all of this stuff. And yeah, I just needed to get away from everything and everyone and really think about what was going on for me. And what was interesting as well is I actually found like I physically could not be around the people that I knew, and listening to their beliefs and the way that they saw the world as I was like in the middle of having my spiritual awakening became almost physically painful. Like I was like, I can't be here with this person right now. And it was so strange because I felt that way around people who I loved dearly and had never had this experience with before. And all of a sudden, I needed to get very far away from them. And it didn't mean that I, disliked them or, disliked them for the beliefs that they had. But I just was like, I can't do this right now. And yeah, and so that was very confusing for me too, like navigating that. And yeah, it just felt so strange to be in my body and be in the world in that moment.
And that's so interesting. I totally like I remember feeling that way too. And I'm curious because you shared in the questions that I asked in preparation for the podcast that you've been alcohol free for just over a year and a month, which is amazing. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
did was it similar with that at all? Like, if you are suddenly making a choice and kind of like recognizing like, oh, this engaging in this particular behavior doesn't really support me and it doesn't feel like healthy and stuff, but the other people in my life they haven't had that realization around it necessarily. So it's hard to like be, because I know, because my husband, he went through NA, like had addiction issues in his past. And he's talked before about sort of the weird loneliness of sobriety and how you kind of like suddenly lose so many of your friends because like the context of your friendship is based on, like the lifestyle choices that align with that. And then you're making this big, I don't know, you've made this big internal shift and it doesn't match anymore. Do you feel like it was similar at all or was it totally different?
Now that you bring it up, I guess that it was. And it's interesting because my way of dealing with it was the same, but I guess more on a drastic scale, because I I mean, it wasn't planned this way. Like I'd already planned to move to London before I decided to get sober, but it was not long after I got sober and stopped drinking that I I moved to London, and I didn't connect with many people over there. Like I really isolated myself for a couple of months there. And even before that, I was in Thailand before that, and I spent a lot of time by myself, and I went to some like really quiet islands where there wasn't many people to even connect with, and I was just like, I need to shut off the world around me and integrate this new way of living. And so yeah, that's quite interesting that you brought that up. It was actually very similar.
Mm, that's really cool. It kind of like reminds me of, I know it's a little similar for me sometimes when I'm around friends that again, I talk so much more to people online than I do people in real life, especially with all the coronavirus stuff. And then when I'm around friends that don't have the same like spiritual or haven't had the same spiritual awakening experiences, sometimes I'm like, it feels like I don't know, like toxic belief patterns or toxic like perspectives. And similarly, like I love them dearly. It's not like I don't like them. I want to be away from them. It's just I'm like, this is so disempowering and limited and like I can't sometimes.
Yeah, so I feel like it can be quite hard to, yeah, navigate friendships at times when, yeah, when you feel that their beliefs and the ways that they're speaking can be quite negative or toxic. And it's so hard too when you want to help them and you want to be like, no, there's a better way. But trying to step in like that often doesn't really work, unless they really want to have a shift and they recognize that their ways of thinking aren't serving them. Unless they realize this, you stepping in and trying to be the rescuer just doesn't work in the way that we really want it to. So it's quite interesting, like often having to just like sit back and listen, not to say that you can't, call people out sometimes, but yeah, I do find that quite difficult.
Yeah, you're totally right that you can't we feel so enthusiastically like, let me just tell you how like, what I understand.
Yeah.
Like, screw you. I
Yeah.
bet that's how our spirit guides feel though, honestly. They're like, we want to help you. And we're like, no, thanks. I'm just gonna keep, feeling disempowered. Don't
Yeah.
interrupt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Gosh, I remember when Viola launched that because I was planning a program called 5D Magic and Manifestation. I was like, aligned. And
Yeah.
it was probably was it in the spring, the late spring, like maybe May or something like that, that she did that program?
When was this? I think it may have been later than that, like August or something even. So, because I left the sex industry. This was very recent for me. So I left the sex industry. My last client, I think, was the 13th of September, and I did manifestation magic maybe like a month before that.
Oh, okay. So that's really cool. Like I wanted to talk about that, about how like this is all really, really recent, but
Mhm.
also it really changed things for you, eh? Like really changed the direction that you were going in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I have I've been doing a lot of like personal development courses and life coaching certifications and all sorts of things for a couple of years now. And I've known that this has been the direction that I really wanted to go down and I feel really fulfilled in. And I've been running my Facebook group, the Slut Project, for over a year and a half now, and being able to help other women to express themselves and to release shame around their sexuality and to embrace their bodies and love their bodies and love who they are, like all of this sort of thing, like it gives me so much joy. And so I very much know, and like this is the path that I really want to go down. But the sex industry and dating sugar daddies has been it's just been such a it's like a habit, I guess, I created where it was a fallback for me, where I always knew that I could create money. I always knew that it would also support the lifestyle that I've lived for such a long time. Like I've been traveling for over a year and a half now, and I haven't had a job. So I've always been able to just like bounce around, and wherever I've gone, I've been able to meet people and get escorting clients or meet sugar daddies who paid for my lifestyle basically. And I although I've known for a long time that I've needed to let this go because it's not truly in alignment for me, it's been really, really hard, and I just have not wanted to let it go. I've wanted to be able to, keep experiencing the things that I've been experiencing and keep living, I guess, like a life of ease. But in saying that as well, it wasn't really a life of ease, because I was often, working so much out of alignment that, it wasn't truly at ease. There was a lot of feelings of, I don't know, abrasion, like it wasn't sitting right in so many ways. And so I I knew that I needed to leave, but I wasn't set up for it. I had massive, like massive repayments and stuff to be making. And so I'd been telling myself, like, it had been becoming clearer and clearer. The more I connected with myself, the more I connected with the universe, it had been becoming clearer that I needed to make this shift out of this lifestyle. And I really wanted to as well, but I was just like, I always had this, okay, but not quite yet. Once I've paid this off, or once I've done this thing, or in 6 months' time, this is when I can do it, and this is when I can leave for good. But not quite yet. I'm not quite ready yet. And I kept telling myself this. And then I started experiencing all these things I was experiencing in this spiritual awakening, where I was having trouble being around people. I was like chronically exhausted just by life, and so many things were shifting, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? And what was really the catalyst for this change was, so I'd listened to a podcast by Michelle Panning, or where she was interviewed, and she was talking about when she became more connected with her body, she felt that her body was telling her things. And so when she was having sex with people who weren't in alignment for her, she felt like her pussy was telling her this, by she was getting UTIs and she was getting thrush and stuff like this. And that was a huge light bulb moment for me. And I started paying more attention to this. And it was during my booking with my last client that I felt like my body like constricting, and I felt I was experiencing pain. And I thought, okay, this isn't good. Like, I don't want my body to be going through this. I don't want to be pushing her through this. So this is when I was really like, okay, I need to make an exit plan. I'm not ready yet, but I need an exit plan. And and I had like more plans for more like clients, and I had a date with a long-term sugar daddy who I'd been seeing for over a year. I had a date with him coming up 2 days later, and I was like, this is fine. We can just keep pushing through this. We're not ready quite yet. We can just keep pushing through it. It was that night after my last escorting client that I got my period that night, and I experienced period pains beyond like anything I'd experienced before. And I was just like sobbing in pain, like I had no idea when it was going to end. And I actually found it quite scary, because the pain was so intense, and I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know when it was going to end. It was so intense that it had made me vomit, which had never happened before. And the whole time it was happening, I just felt like my uterus was screaming at me. Like, she was telling me, like, she was just like, why the fuck have you not stopped yet? We have been trying to tell you. I've been trying to tell you for so long, and you're not listening. Why the fuck aren't you listening? And I was like, oh no. What am I doing? And it was the first time where I had actually truly felt like, like my uterus, like my womb, my pussy was speaking to me, and I could just hear it so clearly. but I was still so stuck in fear of what am I going to do? Like, how are things going to work out? I don't think I'm ready yet. And I had planned to see this sugar daddy like a couple of days later, and I was like, well, I just need to push through it a bit long. And I was like, I'm so sorry that I'm doing this, but I just have to do this. Interestingly enough, the day before I was meant to see this guy, I got this weird like rash on my chest. And I was like, this is so strange. And it was kind of this day that it had turned up was when I actually started to realize. I was like, oh shit, I think I'm having a spiritual awakening. And I reached out to Viola and I asked her, and I was like, do you think this is what's happening? And she's like, yeah, I totally think it is. And then I was like, I've also got this really weird rash on my chest. Do you think it's a spiritual awakening rash? She's like, it could be. So I named it my spiritual ascension rash, and turned out it was actually shingles. So then it shifted into my spiritual ascension shingles. But I think like that was all part of it, like the screaming of my uterus, and I still didn't listen to her. And so next my body gave me shingles, and I had to cancel. Like I couldn't go on this date. I couldn't move out of bed. I was so exhausted. So many things were happening, and this is when I went way up north, and I went, where I didn't know anybody, and I just sat by the beach for 2 weeks. And this is where I spent so much time thinking about this and what it would mean to make that leap into leaving the sex industry and trusting what my body and the energy around me was telling me, and trusting in what the universe has in store for me. And this is where I made that decision that I was never going to go back into the sex industry. I broke up with my sugar daddy. And it's still but it's all still quite new. Like this only happened a few months ago. So it is still terrifying. I still have no idea. Well, not no idea, but it's still very confusing. I don't know what's happening. I don't know where this is leading me, but I decided to trust in what the universe and what my guides have in store for me. I decided to listen to my body. And yeah, although it's scary, I just feel so trusting and what's to come, and I feel really good about it.
That's an amazing story, and that's like the bravery required to like trust and break that habit, because as you're talking I'm feeling like what it really is that your nervous system became wired with the belief that like this is where the money comes from, and that like that there are no other portals for the money to come from. We didn't necessarily have like examples of where it could come from.
Yeah.
And those brain loops are so powerful, and our beliefs are so powerful. And what an exercise in like sovereignty and autonomy to be like, well, sorry, brain, I'm doing it anyways. And I love that your body was like, yeah, like when you first made the connection, like, oh, I'm having some pain during this sex. My body's talking to me. And then you're like, well, we're just going to keep going for a little while longer. And your womb was like, fuck you. I'm like,
no, we're fucking not.
And then you still didn't, you're like, okay, but like I have to. And then your body's like, what do we got next? Friggin' the shingles. Like
shingles. We're giving you shingles, bitch. We're knocking you back.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Right? Like, because I think a lot of people just really choose to dismiss that kind of stuff. And like, I'm really passionate about helping people to connect with their own spiritual and psychic gifts, because I I truly believe that we all have them. We all have access to them. And they're talking to us all the time. And we're just the ones who aren't listening. And we think it has to be like Harry Potter level, like wands and, like turning a cup into a rat or whatever. Otherwise, it doesn't count. But it's like these powerful experiences where part of us is saying, like, no, I know what's up. I can see the big picture. You need to listen to me. Yeah, it's just such a powerful decision to lean into that despite not knowing what's on the other side.
Yeah, and it can be so difficult to, yeah, lean in and make leaps and make decisions from a place of trust and not from your brain that is like just riddled with fear and stories that we've, created from years of what we believe to be evidence. So yeah, making that leap purely based on trust, like, yeah, it's terrifying for sure.
Yeah. And does it feel good to have made that leap? I'm sure sometimes it does, and other times your brain takes over and it's like, panic, panic. Like, what are we gonna do?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, I have so much trust in what's to come for me, and I truly believe it's going to be freaking incredible. And my life is amazing as it is, but definitely the fear comes up when I check my bank account and I'm like, oh, holy shit, what have I done? And there are things that I need to pay for, and I'm like, it would be so easy for me to just come up with a butt ton of money in this, avenue which I, used to walk down so freely, and now I've just cut that off, and I'm like, well, I mean, I still could. And that's the thing, I still could, like, I have that choice, but I've made that decision. And it was the same when I decided to quit drinking, where I I made such a strong decision, and I know as well how much amazing things have come from my life from quitting alcohol, and I didn't see how incredible being sober was for quite a few months. Like, nothing really felt like it was shifting for me. I wasn't having this, like, I didn't start having an incredible experience with being sober for many, many months. And I feel like this is probably the same with this decision to leave the sex industry. Like, it wasn't meant to be that I made the decision to leave, and all of a sudden, like, all of this amazing stuff started happening, and all of these other avenues opened up, and money started pouring down on me like magic. Like, I feel that the magic is in sticking it out and continuing to hold that trust, and yeah, just like really holding onto that belief and trust in what the universe and my guides have for me.
You're basically a genius. That was like really incredible wisdom to share. I think that's the big pitfall that we experience right now because are so hardwired into like our technology and getting like that instant dopamine hit, right? And we want the results instantly. And what you said, like that the magic is in sticking it out and acknowledging that, like, now 13 months, well, I'm sure it's 13 plus months now that you've been alcohol free, you can look back and be like, wow, so many things came into my life when I cleared up that space and like removed something that was like, ultimately lowering my vibrational frequency. And but it didn't feel that way instantly. Like, it had to accumulate and gain some momentum, and then it started to like result in external, I don't know, like evidence and validation of it, right? And it would probably be the same with this. I think that's like, everybody listening, please, like, take that in really deeply, because it's powerful. It's powerful to acknowledge that like we make these brave decisions, And God, wouldn't it be great if the money started raining down right away? But it doesn't necessarily. Maybe sometimes it does. It depends on the person's path, but it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily. And yet the magic is in sticking it out and cultivating that trust and leaning into that trust and letting it like build on itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it is funny because I didn't have that full realization until I was saying it right now. So,
It's like your higher self knows what's up. It knows what's up.
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna hold on to that one too when I forget, because it is so easy to forget that when you're like, why are things not happening yet? I made the decision, I declared it to the universe, like why why isn't it giving back yet? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Isn't that what
yeah.
you told me I had to do? Make the decision, declare it to the universe, get out of my way, receive. That's what I'm doing. Where is it?
Where is it? Why hasn't it come yet? But yeah, I think you're so on the money with what you said about the instant gratification. We're so used to it. So when it doesn't come straight away, or even after a couple of months, like, like I've been out of the sex industry for how long has it been? Just over 3 months. And that really isn't that long for, like for things to really shift. Like it was probably at least 6 months into my sobriety where I really started to see the magic in it.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like so ecstatic about being sober, and I'm so freaking happy that I made that decision. And I will, I could talk anyone's ear off about the magic of sobriety. Like I fucking love it. Yeah, I'm really excited to feel that about this decision and leaving the sex industry and trusting in what the universe has for me with that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And you totally will. I can feel it. And the interesting thing is like, so it feels to me like because you are used to having like receiving large sums of money with relative ease, meaning just not in exchange like of necessarily like direct time and labor for money, although it was still time and still your energy, right? But
Hmm.
you have your auric field already holds that amount of money. It's normalized in your nervous system for you to receive it. So, and to receive it with like a degree of ease. And so I think like there'll just be this penny drop for you and then it'll just come in from like another, but similarly with ease. And like probably it'll start out with the same amounts of money and then grow from there, but it'll also be in soul alignment. So it'll feel so, so good. And I'm curious, do you work with a coach or a mentor or anything right now?
So I am in a mastermind with Bowler Hug at the moment.
Yeah, amazing. Because I feel like you probably have some kind of like magic ability to like create offerings since you already have been wanting to like move into life coaching and supporting women in like unshaming their sexual identity and creating like really deep trusting relationships and pleasurable relationships with their body and all that stuff. And now there's this element of soul alignment and spirituality to it that probably, I don't know. This is just like an intuitive. I'm not even meaning to do a reading, but it just feels like you're just going to be able to create offers and put them out there and receive money easily in exchange for those things. And it'll be like very on par with what you're already used to.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, I think for me, just working through those limiting beliefs that I've had around doing that is massive. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes through with my offers. Like in the last few months, I created a subscription membership where I'm creating content around all of this stuff around, exploring our own sexualities and releasing shame and loving and sharing our bodies, and putting so much more of a soulful spiritual aspect into it, which is very new for me. Yeah, very new in terms of like compared to the sorts of content that I used to make. So I'm just starting to lean more into working with women and their self-worth and sexuality and all of the things with this like awesome soulful aspect to it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to like creepy follow you on Instagram and stuff. I mean, I already do follow you, but like I'm gonna like be more watchful and be like, I know
Yay.
it's just gonna all the good things are gonna align because it was such a soul aligned decision to lean into trust and believe in the magic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting.
So, is there anything else as we wrap up that you would like to talk about or say to the listeners, like any like final thought to share or any topic that you feel like was really an important part of your experience?
I think, the most important part of my experience really was learning to listen to my body. And first, I had to recognize that she was talking to me and that I could actually tune into her. And then making the decision to actually fucking listen to her, because they're two totally different things.
Yeah, as she showed you.
Yeah, as she showed me. So, yeah, listen to your body, listen to your pussy. She knows what's up. Yeah, give her some airtime, girlfriend.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience and like being willing to share it like in its freshness right now. I just think that's like so amazing and so valuable. Beautiful listeners, if you were taking in this episode and you enjoyed it, please screenshot yourself listening to it and tag Hanne and I in it so that we know that you're listening. It makes our hearts so happy. And yeah, thank you all for your time and your attention. And I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are. Lots of love.
Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.